Welcome everyone to another episode of the Nerd Continuity, where we talk about design, development, and other nerdy stuff that happen inside the magical world of the internet. I'm your host, Alex, and from today until the end of time, we're gonna have a second host here because it's great talking with someone, and it's amazing not talking alone. And this is, you already knew him because I did an amazing interview where he talked about himself and all his amazing cool stuff. His name is Michael, and hello, Michael.
Hello, hello. How's it going?
Good, good. How are you?
Doing good. How about you?
Yeah. Again, good. I can ask you again. How are you? We can say
doing
here.
Awesome. Yes.
Forever. Okay. So today, this episode of the Nerd Continuity, basically, I started the Nerd Continuity because every day something crazy or something really interesting happen on the internet, and a lot of people like react in a super weird way, and then after 3 days everything's gone and no one talks about that thing anymore and everything disappears. So I always wanted to talk with someone smart, someone that has some real opinion about things.
But he had to settle for me.
Yeah,
like, yeah, you'll do.
And then share this thing just as a normal conversation. Like the goal is having a positive, constructive conversation about something. So that's generic. And we can start this episode talking about our beloved Adobe that everyone uses and everyone maybe loves it or not. But anyway, I had to write an article on my company's blog page about the shifting of the community of designers and comic book artists, like independent comic book artists, from Photoshop, Illustrator, or other Adobe product to other stuff like independent or small softwares or other things. Especially they started to move away from Adobe after the introduction of the Adobe CC, the Creative Cloud subscription base. Do you use like Adobe CC or you use something else?
I do. At work, I use Creative Cloud, but I also have CS3 at home.
Yeah. That's one of the normal, like, something that I noticed. A lot of users keep using previous versions because at a first glance, like, Adobe CC is like really convenient because you pay a little bit amount of money per month and you have access to everything. You can install it and you have constant updates. Like even in 3 years, you're going to have always the most updated version of the Photoshop, Illustrator, or whatever other program. But at the end, users and personally also, we realize that it's not convenient at all. Like it's freaking expensive. And every time there's an update are tons of gigabytes of download that a month I got because I installed the Adobe CC on 2 computers. That is the maximum limit. There's another point. There's another thing that I hate. But I installed it onto the computer, the entire suite, and I saturated my data cap. So for 2 weeks, I couldn't use the connection in my house because I reached my data cap. So no Netflix for me for 2 weeks. So
well, and it is more convenient. I mean, for me, it's more convenient at work because we have really high-speed internet. I work in an IT company, and so we have the internet is as fast as it can possibly get, probably over there. So it's easy to update over there. But I do have a license. I've been able to take one license and use it at home in case we get snowed in, because it snows here, every winter.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have snow days, but whenever I take it home, it's easy for me to continue to work on videos and websites and design. So it's convenient in that way. But something you mentioned in your article, you can only license out 2 computers.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is not very convenient if you have multiple computers that you need to use with Adobe Creative Cloud.
And it doesn't even matter the operating system. Like, can be 2 Macs or 2 PCs or 1 Mac and 1 PC. Just 2 activations at the same time. So it doesn't matter the OS. Something that
You know, I upgraded my work computer to Windows 10 this week, and automatically ran into the issue of Adobe not recognizing that I had upgraded one of my computers. And so it gave me
Oh
the
my
message that I
God.
was signed into two machines. Now, I ran into this problem back in 2007 with Adobe CS2 or 3. I cannot remember.
Uh-huh.
I ended up, the first time I was on the phone with Adobe for about 30 minutes attempting to convince them that I had not stolen my current. See, and I had I bought that, legitimately.
Yeah.
And, it was,
Are you sure?
it was very frustrating. Yes, I was, my bank account's very sure.
Oh shit.
It's a lot of money back in,
Yeah.
2005 for the Creative Suite. And it was only for Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign.
Yeah, it
And
was
I
the
remember,
designer bundle, right?
yeah, yeah, it was I don't know if they called them the printer web design bundles, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was the designer bundle. And I remember being on the phone with Adobe attempting to convince this woman that I was not stealing and that because the problem is I had to reinstall my OS multiple times because
Oh.
at that point my PowerBook G4 was
Mm-hmm.
on not the end of its life, but it was getting into its old age,
Okay.
and I was having to do that multiple times, and so I hit the the 5 computer registration limit, and I finally asked her. I said, "Look, can you just log me out and deactivate every other computer
Yeah,
that has had?"
exactly.
Because it was the same computer, but it was over and over again over a period
Mm-hmm.
of like 3 years,
Yeah.
and or however long it had been, and she finally agreed to that, and that's when I was able to use it. But
Oh
the
my God.
licensing, I have not had good experiences
Yeah,
with the
it's super
license.
weird, and uh, the other thing that I don't really like that other than the constant like notification that you have to update when a new update is it's on, the amount of space that occupies
Mm.
and the multiple issues that every time you encounter, every time you update, like is it me or the more we go on, the more Photoshop turns into a crappy, bloated software full of nonsense and things that I
Photoshop,
don't use.
yeah. Well, Photoshop for me, the Creative Cloud Photoshop is usable on my i9 computer at work. that is that is built for that.
Yeah,
It is
exactly.
it is a monster, and it is made for that kind of thing. And Photoshop is fine with it. But I cannot use Creative Cloud at home.
Oh my God, yeah.
Not without it. I can maybe use it for maybe, I would say 15 minutes before it begins.
It saturates your
Just
memory
yeah,
and
my RAM is
destroys.
just like I can't handle it. I'm dead.
Yeah.
And everything else across my computer just shuts down. And so just it all just locks down, and I get a frozen screen.
Oh my God.
And so yeah, now Illustrator. The odd thing is, and I think
Hmm.
it's interesting you say Photoshop because Illustrator and InDesign don't give me that trouble. And I've even opened, even working with Premiere Pro,
Yeah.
Premiere Pro, which you would think would be a memory hog,
Yeah.
and rendering and encoding videos,
Hmm.
is not, and even After Effects.
Yeah.
So I mean, and I've worked a little bit in Flash, but more so After Effects
Yeah.
for some of the work that I've done, and none of those programs,
Hmm.
none of the other programs give me any trouble. But
Yeah.
Photoshop will just it will consume my computer from the inside out.
The thing that I don't understand about Photoshop, like I remember Illustrator was like that, was a memory hog and was terrible. Like 20 minutes just to launch it. It was like
Mm-hmm.
in CS2 or CS1. It was really, really crappy.
I think it was CS1. CS2
Yeah, it
was a little
was
faster. CS1 was
terrible.
horrible.
But
Yeah.
now, like Illustrator or InDesign or Premiere are like I don't want to say one task softwares, but they have limited tasks. You like use Premiere to do
Mm-hmm.
video editing, use Illustrator for vector stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, Photoshop has pretty much everything. You can do
Yeah.
frame by frame animations, you can do vector, you can do pixels, you can do 3D, you can do whatever you want. You can do global illumination inside Photoshop, and it's insane. Like, why do you do that? I don't understand why Adobe releases a new product. Like I don't know, they have 20 products right now altogether, and they have this, that it's all different. Like every product does something, but then Photoshop does everything. Like Photoshop
Yeah.
does whatever other program does. So it's
Yeah.
It's insane. I don't understand this logic behind
I'm
that.
wondering eventually if Adobe is going to just kind of wash their hands of Illustrator and create a program that will be somewhat of an odd hybrid of Photoshop and Illustrator.
I'm
At this
gonna
point, I
tell
would
you.
just
I'm gonna tell you a word is like fireworks. Does it say something to you? Fireworks?
I don't like fireworks at
Yeah,
all.
it was the
I
experiment. It was.
I mm, I just there are not enough. There's not a. But see, fireworks was a Macromedia product. So if I remember correctly, Macromedia
Yeah,
Fireworks was
yeah,
it
exactly.
was their answer to Adobe products.
Yeah.
And but instead, when Adobe took it over, I mean, Adobe bought out, because I looked this up. It's been a while, but Adobe took over Macromedia in 2005, December
Yeah.
in 2005. I remember being in class, and they announced that, and I was like, "Yay, good! We're gonna get Flash." And then Adobe, but Fireworks stayed around, and it really didn't need to. Like, I think Fireworks should just go away forever. And
Exactly.
sometimes I met someone who did almost everything in Fireworks, and I was like, "Okay, buddy, well, I need
What's
you to come into the light." Like,
what's wrong with you? Yeah, that was the experiment. I think the logic behind fireworks was kind of okay. Like trying
eh,
to do. I love your reaction. It just like the idea was fine. The execution was terrible. Like it was the most buggy thing
yeah.
ever.
Well, and if you were using Macromedia products, it saved you from having to buy any Adobe products whatsoever.
Exactly.
So, I mean, because I remember the very old tutorials back in 2002 and 2003,
Mm-hmm.
before YouTube, because there were video tutorial
Yes.
lessons out there, like long ago in the early days of the internet when dinosaurs roamed the earth.
Mm-hmm.
There were video tutorials that would explain how to basically do everything in Macromedia for
Yeah.
Flash. Because Flash was a big thing. It was part, in
Yeah.
Dreamweaver. So if you had Dreamweaver, Flash, and Fireworks, you were pretty much set.
Yeah.
And you didn't need to deal with the Adobe stuff. Adobe at that time was still it was still fighting against
Yeah, photo
Quark.
retouching, and it was
Yeah,
fighting mostly like Quark Express for
yeah,
like pagination and stuff, like
yeah,
print stuff, not
yeah.
really
And
design and web.
yeah, I agree. It was really more. It was more. I don't know. At that time, Adobe was something that really only large companies could use.
Yeah,
They hadn't lowered their prices or had made it palatable enough, I guess,
yeah,
for web developers. And I remember dealing with some of the web stuff that I had kind of started working on in high school, and Macromedia was far easier to use than Adobe
yes.
was. But fast forward, 15 years, and I understand. I mean, Adobe's done a really good job of kind of making the Adobe family,
Yes,
incorporating all
absolutely.
of the best,
Hmm.
because I think they incorporated all of the best parts
Yeah.
of those programs. It's just my personal opinion that Fireworks
Hmm.
just doesn't need to exist anymore, because
Yes.
we have Adobe's original product,
Hmm.
and I don't know if Fireworks is really the
No, absolutely.
answer we
No,
need.
totally
It's like
not.
the answer to the question nobody
Hmm.
asked. It's
The world needs these. No.
yeah. The world needs fireworks now.
No,
No, we're
no,
good.
not really. Yeah, the other
Yeah.
thing that is changing right now, I think like Adobe is not keeping the pace with the rest of the world. Like they're so focused on this like bundles and Adobe CC and pushing subscriptions. They're losing audience against these small companies that creates more targeted products like Sketch or Affinity, like Affinity Photos or Affinity Design, and they're more targeted. They're really light, like 200 megabytes of products, and they cost nothing. Like
Yeah.
especially thanks to all these now every operating system has an app store where you can download the app, so the developers, like a single developer, can create his own version of Photoshop and release it for $5 on this app store. And if
Yeah.
it's good enough, it's gonna take users from Adobe because they don't want to pay anymore the $29-30 per month just to use
Mm.
Photoshop, and having like to download the 3 gigabytes every time there's a new upload, that there's a new update. And it's
Yeah. I think, yeah, I think in a lot of ways, I wonder if Adobe took into account that not everyone is going to have very high-speed internet, and that everyone's internet is going to be a little different, because we're seeing, as with most of these services seem to be made for people who live in very large cities.
Yes.
Who have Google Fiber and
Exactly.
can easily download a 3 or 4 gigabyte update in 30 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
If need be. And a lot of places around the United States still don't have that, and sometimes they're still dealing with really bad customer service and / cable companies that try to force you that you can't even, in some places you can't have internet if you don't buy cable.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think I applaud their forward thinking, but I'm not sure the rest of the internet has caught up with it yet.
Yes.
But I hope that eventually they get an easier to download, like a light version.
Yeah,
of
something
all of the
that
programs.
something like Android did, like with the new version of Android. I think they introduced it in KitKat the first time. Basically, it was like fractioned updates for your app. Every time a developer releases an application update, you're gonna end downloading just those new parts, not the entire app. So you're not re-downloading the entire app to replace the old one, but you're just downloading the actual updates. So if the update is just 5K, you don't have to re-download the 3 megabytes of app. So they should apply this logic, because it would save a lot. Like the last update of Adobe CC that was like a month ago, it was just the introduction of the shitty widget to connect to Adobe stock. That is like, that is the same, like they ripped off basically like Photolia, all the other communities of photo sharing where you can buy stock photos. And they integrated this new service inside Adobe. So every time you open Photoshop right now, the shitty widget has to load before you can start using it. And it takes so long, and it's just
and it's almost the same kind of thinking, I think. Now I've been very, I've brought up the negative stuff with Adobe, and I want everyone to know that I don't hate Adobe. I love it a lot.
Yeah, me too.
And it's been integral to my career since I started back in the early 2000s. And so I don't want anyone, this is not an Adobe bashing episode, but I think it's important for developers to talk about the issues that we have in our daily lives with these programs, and maybe ways to overcome them.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So like, for instance, never open Adobe Bridge. Ever.
Oh,
if the world was on fire, never open that stupid program. It will kill your computer.
God, yes. And they also put the icon. I remember in the version like Adobe CS4 or CS5, they put the icon close to the file link. The file link. So like once every 2 hours, you will ended up like mistakenly clicking on the Adobe Bridge icon.
And it just takes forever to load, because it's like, we know you want it to load, and we're like, no, force quit.
I know you want to load all the previews of every images you have ever had in your computer.
And we're opening a Dropbox too, so just there. It's like a whole terabyte of images right there.
God.
There are a few things that I think I wish that we could. Now, I mean, you can on the download manager. If you have a subscription, you can choose what you download. What programs you download. So I've never downloaded Bridge. But in the earlier versions, Bridge came with everything else. And back in, I think, CS2, Bridge was okay. It was not the memory hog that it is now. It was a little easier to use. But I also remember that there were other image programs. And I had a Mac at the time. I had the PowerBook G4, so I just used the Macintosh photo program to organize all my photos. I didn't need Bridge to do the same thing that
freedom of choice. It should be Adobe is doing other sketchy things. Something that happened to me like a month ago. I downloaded After Effects to do a bunch of post-processing stuff for work. And I found out that after 2 hours of downloading, I didn't know why it was taking so long. Basically, he was installing also Cinema 4D without asking me anything.
What?
Like, you don't have the choice. And I couldn't even uninstall it. So I tweeted to Adobe, like, what the hell? Why you installed it without telling me? There wasn't a checkbox. There's not. I'm one of those guys that reads everything. I read the terms and conditions before like clicking actually install. And there wasn't any checkbox, any suggestion that, oh, we're going to install another software that you never used. And I tweeted to Adobe and asked why that happened and why I cannot not uninstall it. Like I have to uninstall After Effects and then I can uninstall Cinema 4D. You know how they answered me? They sent me to the tweet account of the Cinema 4D support. Like, oh, you should talk to Maxwell Software, that is the producer. If you have complaints, talk to them. But I installed After Effects. I didn't install Cinema 4D, and now you're sending me. Like, I think Adobe is like, how, like you said, we should, like, users should tackle specific problems, but the main problem is that Adobe is losing the contact with the user. Is like, it looks like sometimes he doesn't really care about the users. Like, just, I know you're a corporate and you have to harvest money, as much money as possible, but be kind. Like, if I'm happy, I'm gonna buy your product. If you treat me like shit and you just want my money and then, okay, now I have your subscription, I'm gonna do whatever I want, I'm gonna wait.
Well, and I'm not sure it's exactly Adobe as it is possibly the customer service, because there have been a lot of companies in the past that they've had great product.
Yeah.
Which Adobe, and I don't think anybody's going to complain about Adobe having a bad product.
No,
I think there
absolutely.
are problems with some of their products, but in general, Adobe, there's a reason why it's the industry standard. It's some, powerful, amazing stuff.
Absolutely. It's great.
But other companies have had wonderful, powerful, and amazing stuff in the past, but their customer support's been horrible.
Yes.
So, I think part of what both of us have experienced is we've both experienced their customer support.
Yes.
In their department. And I think a lot of people out there listening will probably have similar stories.
Yes.
They're not a certain cable company that everybody talks about, but, they...
certain cable.
I think it all depends on who you get and who's there at the time. You could have someone who was hired who doesn't care about you or your problems, and you're like, I don't want to deal with it. And then you are going to have someone who's going to sit down and go over everything with you and be able to
probably it is, but
help you out.
Well, let's change topic. I'm getting like super hot here. Get it? But the other thing that I read the other day, a funny thing, like now Facebook is stating like officially that they have more views and more clicks on videos than YouTube. Like YouTube reached this, I don't know the exact numbers, but YouTube reached like billions of visualization per day after how many, like 10 years? YouTube started in 2005. And Facebook videos started a year ago, probably. And now they stated that they have more views. So I dig a little bit more into that. And I found out that basically YouTube consider a view, like a legit view, if the users is watching the video and is like the audio is on for more than 15 seconds. Instead, Facebook, it doesn't matter, like the video has to play for 3 seconds and it doesn't matter if you have audio on, off, or you actually tapped or clicked on that video. Like the video,
not right.
And you know that the video auto starts, right? So you're scrolling your streaming on Facebook and the video starts playing and maybe you're not even watching, but you're giving visualization to that video. So Facebook is, hey, we have more views.
Yeah.
And
that's
yes, like, are you kidding? Like, why? Like, I don't understand these things. Why?
I think I don't know why they would do something like that. I mean, YouTube takes their views very seriously.
Yeah.
They take their rules very seriously, and that makes sense. But see, that makes sense. That means someone's intentionally wanting to watch the video. It's more than 15 seconds. The audio's on. That means they're plugged in. They're not. They're not just kind of turning it on and then going to another tab.
Yeah, exactly.
Which makes sense to me, but
absolutely.
I think Facebook. I mean, you're kind of. That's like throwing. I don't know. That's like throwing stuff at people and saying we serve more people than McDonald's. Like now you're just
Exactly.
you just throwing more stuff in more people's face than McDonald's
Yeah.
has.
The fact that Facebook is using these stats, these statistics to attract investors. So now I have actually companies that they come to my company and they ask to create original content for Facebook. Like, we want to publish on Facebook videos. And I say, what about YouTube? Why we don't like push a YouTube channel? No. Facebook has more views. And it's hard for me to explain, like, yeah, but the level of engagement and result is completely different from
Your conversion is
Facebook.
going to be higher on YouTube.
Exactly. And the other thing that it's like super weird that Facebook doesn't have anything, like they say they have it, but it's not true for me, like any sorts of like original content control. So a lot of like what the last statistics was, like 70% of videos on Facebook are stolen videos from somewhere else.
Yeah, or Vine, mostly
Exactly.
Vine.
Yeah, exactly.
May just be my friends, but I'm seeing a lot of Vines. But actually, it's not even my friends. It's it'll show that whether or not my friends like something,
Yeah,
and they don't have to share it.
exactly.
But it's like any World Star or especially radio pages like
Yeah.
local radio stations are the worst at taking Vines and uploading them to Facebook. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just seeing way too much of that, and I don't know why. I know Facebook is wanting to integrate Vine more, but it seems like
Yeah.
there's an inordinate amount of Vines on there's an inordinate amount of Vines on Facebook.
Yes,
On Facebook
absolutely.
pages, and it's not personal accounts of my friends, it's the pages themselves.
Yeah.
Especially aggregators, like the issue with the last 2 weeks with the fat Jew. That was his
No.
handle, the comedian.
Oh no, I
This
didn't hear about it.
comedian called himself the Fat Jew and landed a Comedy Central pilot.
Oh.
But it turns out all of the comedians turned on him, and because he was stealing jokes. He was basically aggregating jokes from Tumblr, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook,
Oh,
stealing
God.
them, turning them into his own, and then acting like he was the author of them.
Oh God.
And so once the comedy industry, I guess,
Yeah.
turned on him, he lost his pilot, and he's been in utter disgrace
Yeah.
ever since.
Of course. Come on.
It's almost indicative of what's happening now.
Yeah.
It's almost like people are more concerned about aggregating content than they are about creating it. And
Yeah.
it's dangerous.
And it's
also
kind of
creates an unsafe
stupid.
environment.
Yeah, and it's kind of stupid because I think like the more and more we go, the internet is growing and the people are getting more used to the internet. We are focused more on the actual content. So if something it's worth my time, we live in a super fast world. So it's something, if I have to read or watch something has to be worth it. And if it's just an aggregation of things that like you didn't do it, it's going to be entertaining for the first 2-3 days probably, but then I'm going to stop watching it because there's nothing new. It's just like stealing something from somewhere else. And it's going to give you a lot of views. Absolutely. It's going to give you a lot of visualization and users, but I don't know. That's, for me, it's like totally meaningless.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's more of a scraping the bottom of the barrel. Like most original content that you'll see will come from Reddit and Imgur and or Imager. I don't know how you pronounce that. And some of these other online things. You'll see the content there first, and then 3 days later you'll see it on Huffington Post or BuzzFeed,
Exactly.
or and it just kind of aggregates. Now BuzzFeed doesn't do that anymore, but a lot of times they, in the past they were kind of taking from top lists and.
Mashable started to do that.
Yeah, and a lot of you'll see a lot of these online websites, say 5 ways of doing this, or they'll even with permission they'll take it from the Reddit post from the user's permission, and then they'll put it online for their segments, and so it's like this one's viral, and so so we're seeing a lot more of that where some people are really making a living out of aggregating other people's content.
Yeah, exactly. So stop using Facebook. That's it. That's it.
Whatever.
People, okay, our dear users, stop using Facebook and just follow us on Google Plus. It's better.
Right.
Sorry.
Right. Oh, I do not endorse that.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Cool. Well, I think we were also going to talk about the interesting things that have happened to web developers lately. Anybody who might be looking for a job.
Yes.
I had a few friends lately on social media mention that they were having a hard time, and this has happened. I mean, this isn't just now; it's happened over the last several years. And this happened when I was looking for a job a few years ago. I would see these really odd job listings in which they were asking for a lot of weird qualifications that didn't have anything to do with web development.
Yes.
And even when they were saying web designer or front end web developer, they were wanting like, I don't know, 10 years with back end code. They wanted, they wanted a lot of very odd, like they wanted more qualifications than anybody could possibly have.
Not related to the actual job.
Yes. Like, please learn C+.
Yeah.
Like,
for web design.
Okay.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. C#. It's great if you could do that.
Yeah.
Well, and we were talking earlier, they wanted, wanting more experience in a language than the time that language has existed.
Yeah.
So
you can do names. Come on, let's talk about it. Like Swift.
Well, okay, yeah, Swift. I mean, I think we both saw that. I mean, whenever Swift came out and was announced, all of a sudden we started seeing job openings, and people started complaining on Twitter about job openings happening where people were requiring 10 years in Swift or 5 to 10 years in Swift. And Swift hadn't even existed for 6 months. And, like we were talking about earlier,
totally
not
legit.
even the developers who made Swift were working on Swift for
exactly.
working on beta versions.
Yeah, I was thinking about making Swift 5 years ago, probably, but I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, and I just wonder if I don't know who's messing up on this, but I've friends on social media who are beginning to kind of point this out, that it's becoming very ridiculous. And I think it's partly because companies don't know what a web designer is anymore.
Yes, exactly.
In
my opinion, like, of course, not in a negative way, I'm saying this, but there's a lot of ignorance in this word, especially like owners or CEO of companies that are not startups, or they didn't start as an actual digital web company. There's a lot of ignorance. Like, they actually don't know what they need. They don't know what they want. So they probably they use a template around, like they check, oh, this is a nice job offer. Like, just copy that and list whatever we want to do. There's the new language from Apple to do a native iOS application. We want that. Let's put this standard 5 years. So there are like two things: or they don't actually know what they're talking about, or they know but they don't read what they publish. Like, they just do that. Like, they ask a secretary to just write it down, and the poor boy, the poor guy or girl, they don't know, because that is not their job to hire specific skilled people, and they just write a standard job offer that, unfortunately, during the years, is like, job offers are getting more and more ridiculous. Like, now to get a job as a web designer, you have to know at least 20 different things. Like, you have to know agile process, waterfall process. You have to know HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, a little bit of Angular JS, jQuery. You have to be SAS, SCSS, LAS. You have to know everything. I know that, like, recently it's easier because, like, languages are getting faster and easy to learn. But if you search for a junior developer, you cannot ask, I don't know, something like insane like that.
Well, even senior developers I'm seeing, across the board, talking to some of them, some people are looking for senior positions, and they're asking even more ridiculous stuff. And it's odd because they're basically asking you for $100,000 a year. Essentially, the job posting that they're posting for should pay $100,000 a year.
Yes.
But they're only offering maybe 40, 50,000.
Yeah.
So they basically, it's kind of like what happened in 2007 is people started wanting 2 or 3 positions in one. And
exactly.
Like the whole print web design there for a while there in 2007, people were wanting a print and web designer. So you had to know front end code, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery. Also, you had to have 5 or 10 years worth of experience in print design, which you cannot do. And you cannot work full time as a print designer and
Mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden know all the rest of the code unless you're doing that on your, it's just there's a weird disconnect, and now
Yes.
they're confusing front end with back end and they don't know which.
Yes.
I
Exactly.
remember one job interview I had years ago where they said, I mentioned that, yeah, I was front end, and they said, well, what's that? And I was like, oh,
Oh God.
okay. Yeah, that's just a
Okay.
red flag. I mean, if they don't know what
Was
they're
nice to
asking
meet
for,
you.
yeah, exactly. And especially when it comes in when it's in house,
Yeah.
that's even more terrifying because you don't have any backup if you're the only in-house person. And some places out there are like, well, we can only afford one person, but yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, the fact,
yeah,
yeah, I think like in general, like, of course, like companies, they want to save money, and it's like kind of the job of the designer developer being as skilled as possible in its field.
yeah,
So it's like there's no just we cannot point the finger against just one person. Like it's their fault or it's like it's your fault or whatever. Like it's fault of pretty much everyone. Like
hmm
companies that are it's like the economy is like that. So companies are trying to spend less money, but without uh, removing fields. So they want to keep doing design and print and development all together, but with
hmm
less people. And people like actual like designers or developers, they want to keep working, of course. They try to be as skilled as possible. So yes, I'm a developer, but I can do a little bit more design because I know that it's required and it's a good skill. And I know a little bit of print because while I was studying design, I studied a little bit of print. So but then we arrive at one point that we are not anymore good in something and we are kind of average in everything.
hmm
And it's not like we are hybrid that we don't excel in something specifically,
hmm
and we can do pretty much everything, but on an average way. We are
yeah.
not really, really good in something. So
Well,
it's
and then some people will look at that and go, well, you're just average. I just don't see anything that stands out. Well, most of our
exactly.
time is spent trying to learn everything, and
You
I mean,
ask me
maybe,
everything.
yeah, and it's just this weird catch-22. So really, I tell some people when they're looking for jobs,
Hmm.
um, I had one or two people ask me about web design jobs, and I said, you really need to gauge the company because if they like
Yeah.
you, they'll train you in whatever they want to train you in. Um,
Yes.
th- that's really what it comes down to. You don't have to, and sometimes people will put down 5 years experience to scare away people who have a passing knowledge of something. I
Hmm.
knew back when I worked for a newspaper, they said they put in there maybe 2 or 3 years of experience for some things, but other things would, when they didn't want to hire someone new, uh, or someone who was not serious about it, I think
Yeah.
specifically it was not serious, they would put in like 5 years experience. And so even if someone had 1 year of experience and they applied, then that still meant they were serious enough and they would still get an interview. So,
Oh, come on.
so they kind of, another person that I was talking to encouraged people to go ahead and apply even if you don't have all of the qualifications
Yes.
because if they're really a bad company, they're going to sit there and say, yeah, you don't have anything that we want exactly to the letter, we're not talking to you.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
good companies will say, you have the general gist of how this works, we'll train you in the rest.
Yeah.
And
You
so
can grow with us and you can learn.
exactly, yeah. And if they're investing in you, you're going to be investing in them. So
Oh,
yeah.
yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
hopefully they're gonna change. We're gonna change. The world is gonna change. I don't even know if like recently, like when I moved to Canada, I received job offer via LinkedIn or actually via like with my website. Like people like employer were like texting me and sending me messages from the contact form of my website. So I didn't even have to do an actual job search on Craigslist or
hmm
other jobs finder. So is like recently, like the more we go, the job offer is gonna still be a valid thing that we're gonna use, or I don't know. I wonder if something's gonna change and there are gonna be other things.
I think as long as the web continues to grow at the pace it is growing, that industry will be. I have never experienced a state of, I don't know, stagnancy with web development. It's always been in a state of flux. It's always been moving. It's always been changing. And I mean, the definition of what a web developer is today is not what it was even in 2007.
Yeah, absolutely.
Within 10 years, to some people that, you sit there and go, well, it has been almost 10 years. Well, yeah, but other jobs, compare that to an architect's job description. What an architect is, what an entry-level architecture position requires, what a senior architecture position requires. It has stayed pretty much the same, just adding new technology, but we deal with new technology all the time. So we're radically, the idea of what a web developer is radically changing.
Yes, and, absolutely.
Bootstrap 4, just came out as an alpha. So,
I have to check that.
Yeah.
Is it good?
I haven't tried it yet. I need to. This is on my list of things to get my hands on. I had the tab open, but even Bootstrap 2 and 3. I mean, how radical of a change was it's the first Bootstrap versus our current version. The entire syntax changed.
Yeah.
So instead of just simply putting in media queries and then adjusting those to the classes, we're now doing columns, which is it's easier, but it's in some ways, but the syntax has changed. The way of doing it has changed, and so we're constantly learning. We're constantly learning new stuff.
Yeah, never stop.
Yeah. So.
I think that's it. We exhausted all our arguments for the episode of today. I think that was great.
So. Yeah, that was fun.
Let us know in the comments if shut up or keep going or something. I don't know. You're talking about boring shit.
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you again, Michael. And we're going to do it again the next week. And if you guys want us to talk about something like your personal experience, or if you have an argument that you want us to dig a little bit and do a bit of research, we are pretty good doing research. Let us know in the comment. And of course, you can find me on my website, YouTube channel, and you can find Michael where?
Twitter handle, Michael Dambold.
Nice.
And my current website is under development, so I'm not going to give that out yet.
Sweet. Okay. I'm going to put all the links in the description anyway.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you again, and see you next time, guys.